Today's daf is daf Yud. Hahedyo tofer kedarka. The Mishnah had stated that if he's not a skilled weaver or sewer, then he's allowed to sew in the normal way that he does it on Chol Moed. Hechidomi hedjot. Who is this person who we define and classify as a hedjot? He's unskilled. And here we have two opinions. Amri B'nei Rabbi Yanai, according to one opinion, Kol she'eno yochel lahotzi malo machat bebas achas. He's an uman only if he's able to pass the needle through the garment in and out several times, filling up the entire length of the needle. So with one pull of the needle, he completes many stitches. If he's unable to do so, he is a hedjot as regard the sewing. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina Amar, Kol she'eno yochol lechavein imra bechefes chaluko. And here we're talking about sewing a thick strip of material to make a hem at the bottom of their tunics to prevent it from rubbing out. He's considered unskilled if he cannot sew this strip onto the garment. Instead, he makes it wider on one end. He can't do it evenly. He perhaps makes it narrow on the other end. The Mishnah says, "Ve'uman machlif." A skilled person is machlif. What is machlif? My machlif. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, we have two opinions again. Mafsia, which means wide steps. What does that mean in this context? The stitches are not close to each other, rather they are spread out. That's called machlif, and that's the way an uman can be allowed to stitch on Chol Moed. Wide steps, stitches that are far apart, spread out. Rabbi Bar Shmuel Amar, Shine Kalbisa. It's stitching similar to the teeth of a dog. Rashi explains, Kalbisa was the name of a stitch which was not sewn evenly across the garment, but rather each stitch was made on a different level, some being higher and others lower. And it's called kalbasa miloshen kelev, because like the teeth of a dog, which are one higher than the other, so too one stitch is higher than the other. The Mishnah says, misargin es hamitos. Misargin means to interlace. And we're talking about supports for beds. The Mishnah says that according to Rabbi Yossi, he's allowed to tighten the bed supports on Chol Moed. And that's called mematchin. Mematchin miloshem limtoach, to tighten something. My misargin umay memaskhin. What is the meaning of misargin and of memaskhin? Interlacing and tightening. And the Gemara tells us that Kiyasar Avdimi from Bavel, he came to Eretz Yisrael, came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel. Pligi ba Rabbi Chia bar Abba v'Rav Asi. And he reported that there's a machlokes between Rav Chia and Rav Asi. Shavayim Mishmei de Chizkiya of Rabbi Yochanan. And both were claiming the view of Chizkiya and Rabbi Yochanan. Chadam are according to one, Misargim Shesi ve Erev. Umemaschin Shesi below Erev. So according to one opinion, Misargim, which we said is a reference to these ropes of the beds. And we said that Misargim was interlacing. So he's weaving the ropes of the beds lengthwise and crosswise. And memaschin means placing the ropes on the bed lengthwise without weaving them crosswise. That's one opinion. The Chadam, according to another opinion, misargim to see below Erev. It's dafka misargin, where we place the ropes of the bed lengthwise without weaving them crosswise. So according to this opinion, weaving the ropes of the bed both lengthwise and crosswise would be forbidden on Chol Moed because the bed is usable with lengthwise ropes alone, even without crosswise. So if he does it both lengthwise and crosswise, which was unnecessary, that would be considered excessive exertion, which is asur on Chol Moed. V'chadam, according to the other opinion, misargin shasi below erev. So misargin is not the combination of shasi v'arev, but rather it is lengthwise without crosswise. U'mimaschin shem hoya rafui mimascho. If the ropes of the beds were woven on the bed before the yontif and they became loosened, then you're allowed to tighten. The Gemara asks, Eini, is this really so? That misargin, according to one shita, means to place the ropes crosswise only, but not lengthwise. Meaning that both, if it was ropes that were crosswise and lengthwise, it would be forbidden. Vatani, Rabbi Tarchlifa Bar Shaul, Vishavin She'ein, Mafshilin Chavom L'chatchila. Both Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi agree that we're not allowed to twist new ropes during Chol Moed. L'chatchila. According to that, Mandiyama, who identifies Mitzargin as weaving the ropes of the bed lengthwise and crosswise. Umemasche, Shasi below Erev lengthwise without crosswise. Hainu de Katani Rav Tachlifa Bar Shaul Vishavin Shein Mafshilin Chavolim Lechatchila. Both Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi agree that we're not allowed to twist new ropes during Chol Moed, meaning that although Rabbi Meir allows new ropes to be placed both lengthwise and crosswise, but one may not twist new ropes on Chol Moed. Elo l'mandiam misargin shasi below erev. According to one mandiam who says that misargin refers to placing the ropes of the bed lengthwise without weaving them crosswise, is memaschin. Shem haya rafui haya mamascho. If the ropes of the bed became loosened, then they can be tightened. If that be the case, I don't understand. Hashda shasi v'erev amit lo. If you want to do it both lengthwise and crosswise, that's prohibited on Chol Moed, and that's true. Bein l'Rabbi Meir, bein Rabbi Yossi. Is chavolim l'chatchila mipoy? Did Rav Tachlif have to be mechadish or chiddush? And in the case of chavolim, new ropes, he's not allowed to twist it? Certainly not. We all agree that ropes may not be placed lengthwise and crosswise on the bed. Certainly not. He cannot make new ropes on Chol Moed. And the Gemara obliges with kasha. Amalei Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak l'Rav Chia bar Oven. Mi ikoleman diyomer misargin shasi below erev. Is there anyone who actually maintains that misargin is when you place the ropes of the bed lengthwise without weaving them crosswise? Vatnan, we have a Mishnah in this case in Masechet Kelim. Rabbi Meir Omer. Hamita Michi Yisrog Ba Shlosha Fatim. We can consider this bed as a finished product, a finished utensil. It's Makabel Tumah. From when 3 boxes are interlaced in it. So when is this bed considered a finished utensil? It's Gemar Keli. And once the Gemar Keli is Makabel Tumah, that's only when there are 3 boxes or spaces between the ropes, which are crossed and are called batim. And these are 3 boxes are interlaced in it. Accordingly, it's clear from the Mishnah that the term Misargin refers to a bed in which ropes are interlaced both lengthwise and crosswise. The Gemara says, therefore, we have to reinterpret it. Ela Amar, Ela Kiyasa Rabin Amar b'Misargin Kliyamelo Pligi. With respect to the meaning of the word Misargin, everybody agrees that it means that we weave the ropes of the bed both lengthwise and crosswise. Ela Ki Pligi, where do they argue? B'Mematchin. What is Mematchin? So according to one opinion, Mematchin should see below Erev. In other words, he places the ropes of the bed lengthwise without weaving them crosswise. Umar Savar, according to the other opinion, Shem Haya Rafli Memascho. If the ropes of the bed, which were woven on the bed before Yontif became loosened, they may be tightened. Meisvei will challenge it from the Brisa Misargin Esamita. The Ein Tzarech Lomeshem Maschin, Divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yossi Omer Maschin Avalo Misargin. We're allowed to tighten it, but we're not allowed to interlace it. Yesh Omrim Ein Maschin Kolika. There's no heter of Maschin. See below Erev. That Memaskin means that you could place the ropes of the bed lengthwise without weaving them crosswise. Hainu the Asu Yesh Omrim de Ifluge. Now we have the opinion of the Yesh Omrim that disagrees as far as Tuvas Oal is concerned. Okay, so in other words, now we understand why we needed the Yesh Omrim to argue with the first opinion and establish in their opinion that we're not even placing the ropes of the bed lengthwise without weaving them crosswise. But according to the one who says that Memaska means that if the ropes of the bed, which were woven on the bed before a festival, became loosened, they may be tightened. Is Liesh Omer Memasko Nami Lo? According to this opinion, in the name of the Yesh Omrim, even tightening the ropes would be forbidden. And the Gemara answers yes. In Kavan the Efshal Mimle Mimade, it's possible to fill it up with garments, meaning that depression in the bed could be filled up with garments. So it's possible to lay on the bed. Is lo tarchinon. We may not exert ourselves to tighten the ropes, because this would be unnecessary exertion. The other Tanoim are of the opinion that since the support of the ropes is superior to that afforded by filling in the depression with garments, preparing the bed by placing ropes is permitted if the bed is needed for Yontif. And this brings us to the next Mishnah. We have a brisa that says Misargin es hamita. We can interlace supports for the bed. And for sure, we're allowed to do the mematchin. Rabbi Yossi Omer mematchin. Have a low misargin. We're only going to allow mematchin, but not to interlace to support the bed. According to the third opinion, ein memaschin kol ikar. We don't even allow this tightening. See below Erev. We can understand that it means that you're allowed to do a mask by placing the ropes of the bed lengthwise without weaving them crosswise. Hainu, the Asu Yesh Omer Lemiflagi, and that's why we have the opinion of the Yesh Omer, who will disagree with the first opinions. And according to the Yesh Omer, we're not even allowed to place the ropes of the bed lengthwise without weaving them crosswise. Elamandi Omar Sheim Haya Rafli Mimasko, according to the one who says that Mimaska means that if the ropes of the bed, which were woven on the bed before Yontif, became loosened, they may be tightened, is Liyesh Omrim Mimasko Namilo. Is it possible that according to the opinion of the Yesh Omrim, even tightening the ropes would be forbidden? The Gemara says, yes, came in the Efshel Milmle Bimone, since it's possible to fill up the depression in the bed with garments and lay on the bed, lo tarchina, we're not going to exert ourselves to tighten the ropes. That would be an unnecessary exertion. And the other Tanoim of the opinion that since the support of the ropes is superior to that afforded by filling in the depression with garments, preparing the bed by placing ropes is permissible if the bed is needed for Yontif. And that leads us to the Mishnah here on Daf Yud. Ma'amidin tanur v'kirayim v'reichayim b'moed. We're allowed to set up an oven or a stove, or reichayim is millstones on Chol Moed. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, however, Rabbi Yehuda says, ein mechabshin es hareichayim b'tchila. And we don't gouge the millstone initially. The Gemara is going to explain what this means. My mechabshin. What does this word mechabshin mean that Rabbi Yehuda employs gouging? Rabbi Yehuda Amar, this is the Amora of Yehuda. Menake reichaya. So according to this first opinion of Yehuda, mechabshin, which is prohibited according to Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah, means to cut grooves into the millstone. A millstone is basically a lower fixed millstone, which is the bedstone. The upper rotating millstone is the runner, and a pair of smooth millstones will not grind the kernels properly. Therefore, the lower millstone, which is otherwise known as the bedstone, is roughened by cutting grooves into it, producing the ridges that catch and grind the kernels. And Rabbi Chiel Omar, Bas Eina, it means cutting the eye hole. This is the hole cut into the middle of the upper millstone through which the kernels enter between the stones to be ground. And now we have to cut the eye hole. Meisvei, Gemara raised an objection to Rabbi Chiel, who says Bas Eina. From the Brisa says Ma'amidin Tanur v'kirayim v'reichayim b'moed. It's permissible to set up an oven or a stove or millstones on Chol Moed u'bilvat on the condition shelo yigmar malachto, that he doesn't complete the work. They must be left incomplete. That's called a shinui. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer v'chacham omrim af yigmar. He can complete the work. Rabbi Yehuda Omer mishmo, in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, ma'amidin es hachadosha u'mechabshin es hayishana. We're allowed to set up a new millstone and gouge an old millstone. We can set up the new millstone but not gouge it, and the old millstone may even be gouged. And as we said before, Menaker Rechaya according to Rav Yehuda, and Bas Eina according to Rav Yechiel. Let's go over this again. According to Rav Yehuda, who says that this concept of mechabshin, which we call gouging, means cutting grooves in the millstone, Then we find in the case of an old one, the original ridges eventually became worn down from constant use. According to Rabbi Yechiel, is Yeshana Baseina Lomala. Why does one need an old one need an eye hole to cut into it? If it is previously a previously used millstone, it already has an eye hole. By definition, it has to have an eye hole, or else one would not have been able to grind with it until now. So my answers could go into Kaboy Larvuche Tfei Purta. Rabbi Yechiel will explain that the Bryce is referring to a case in which one wants to widen the existing eye hole a little bit more. And Rabbi Yehuda is saying in the name of Rabbi Lazar that one may widen an existing eye hole in an old millstone, but may not initially drill an eye hole into a new millstone. Rav Huna Shamei Lahu Gavra de Komenake Rechaya Bechula de Moada. Rav Huna heard about a certain person who was cutting grooves in a milestone on Chol HaMoed, and it was an old milestone. Omar Man Hai, who is this man? Israel Gufe de Kamechil Chula de Moada. His body should be desecrated because he desecrates Chol HaMoed. Savar Lucky Yesh Omrim. Rav Huna holds like the Yesh Omrim who forbid gouging any millstone on Chol HaMoed. Rav Huna curses the man simply on the basis of hearing him cut grooves in a milestone. Since Rav Huna could not have known through hearing alone whether the milestone was old or new, it must be that he's of the opinion that cutting grooves in any milestone is forbidden on Chol HaMoed, like the view of the Yesh Omrim. Dorash Rav Chama Nokrin Rechaim B'Moed. We may cut grooves in a milestone on Chol HaMoed. Apparently, Rav Chama allows grooving of any milestone, even a new one. Mishum Rabbi Meir Amor, Afilu Sus Sherochev Olav Chamor Sherochev Olav. He says that even in the case of a horse or a donkey, it's permitted to trim the hooves on Chol HaMoed. Now, which Tana does Rav Chama follow? We could say that Rav Chama interprets gouging in the Mishnah and the Brisa as referring to cutting the eye hole, like the Shita of Rabbi Yechiel. It is only this skilled act that Rabbi Yehuda, the name of Rabbi Lazar, forbids doing in the new millstone. But grooving a new millstone would be permitted, since that is not a skilled act. Alternatively, Rav Chama follows the view of the Tanakhama and Mishnah, states unequivocally that we may set up millstones on Chol HaMoed, implying that they may be completely manufactured from scratch. Alternatively, Rav Chama follows the view of the Chachamim in the Brisa, who hold that one may even complete a new millstone, which means to gouge it, and that is permissible. Aval Chamra, the Reicha Lo, the hooves of a mill donkey, a donkey that turns the millstone, is not permitted to trim. Back in the time, the Mishnah was common to use donkeys to turn the millstones. Now, it is permitted to grind flour on Chol HaMoed only for festival use, which amounts to a relatively small amount of grinding, since the donkey will be able to grind this small amount even if its hooves are left untrimmed. Therefore, one may not trim the hooves of the donkey on Chol HaMoed.